Yeah, it did. Took us a lot of episodes. We're also way better than we would have been if we didn't do those episodes. That's not necessarily sexy. What people like to hear is the opposite of, well, yeah, no, I went viral in my first post. That's so rare that even aspiring for that is most likely setting you up for failure.
When you are aware of what creates results, what really creates results, you can put time to your advantage. You can, in 5 years, you'll be in a better spot if you focus on the things that really matter. It is a formula. Success is a formula.
Next Level Nation, welcome back to another episode of Next Level University, where we help you level up your life, your love, your health, and your wealth. We hope you enjoyed yesterday's episode number 1722, The 2 Types of Imposter Syndrome. Today, for episode number 1723, an important thing to understand about time. One of my favorite quotes, I guess it's more of a thought process than a quote, but one of the biggest misconceptions is that where you are today is where you will be forever, and where somebody else is today is where they've been forever. And it's very easy to look at someone who is 5, 10, 15, 20 years further in their journey than you, and just assume they've always been there, and assume you could never be there. Or, this is the other potentially less empowering side of things, it seems empowering, but it becomes non-empowering. You look at where someone is, and you say, well, I mean, they're 10 years ahead of me. In 10 years, I could be there too. That is the truth. But not if you don't do anything different. And that's my main thought for this, is an important thing to understand about time is not on your side unless you're on your side. Unless you're doing the right things. We had a conversation earlier, and we were talking about some experiences I had recently, and Alan said, what was the biggest difference in the mindset of the person you were talking to? And I sat with it, and I said, I think the issue is they assume that in 10 years things are going to be different just because time. And I think they're automatically assuming that things will be different in a positive direction, when in reality, if you don't change at all, it gets worse. Because there is no such thing as stagnation, because you're 10 years older, gravity, biology, everything is taking its toll on you. So that's kind of how we came up with this episode, because 10 years from today, your life will look drastically different than it does today. Will it be by accident? Will it be by intention? Will it be by luck? Will it be by hope? I don't know. I just know that if you're not leveraging time, it really isn't on your side as much as maybe we wish it would be.
There's so many different avenues I can go down with this. It was this weekend or last week. Emilia called me a linear thinker, and I was super offended. Playfully offended, because I knew what she meant. She meant chronological thinker. So there's 2 types of time in Greece, there's 2 words for time. There's kairos and there's chronos. Chronos is chronological time, and I think kairos is referring to what we now understand as quantum time. I'm not going to go down the quantum mechanics rabbit hole of physics.
Yeah, let's not.
Let's not. But I will say there's quantum physics and then there's mechanics. And mechanics is Newton's laws, which is every action has an equal and opposite reaction. It's cause and effect. It's the cause and effect world. If I drink water, I'll have to pee. It's that. I live in that world very heavily. I calculate chess moves, and I would say a good analogy for the way I think is a chess player in the economy, in the world, in life. And how do you put yourself in the position to succeed? And I help other people do that as well, and make sure you're in alignment with your goals and dreams. That's awesome. We talk about that all the time. But time is the one thing in this sort of iceberg that I keep referencing. Imagine an iceberg. Above is results, and then there's all these things. There's 15 categories below it: potential and influences and standards and beliefs and all that stuff. I've been through it. Time isn't on there, because time is a constant. In mathematics, there's a certain label called a constant that essentially what it means is it doesn't change ever, and you can't do anything about it. I can't increase time or decrease time. All I can do is invest my time more optimally. And so all of us have time, effort, and money. Money is infinite, technically, again. technically. Which is why there was no trillion-dollar companies in the past. Now there's a bunch of them, and by a bunch of them, I mean a handful of them. And I would always say things like, what's the most successful company 100 years ago? There are companies right now that make more money in 1 year than the most successful company in history 200 years ago. So money, inflation, everyone understands inflation. That's my point with that. So money's infinite, increases over time, hopefully most of the time. And then you've got effort, which is semi-finite. Effort is, I can do a workout today and I can max out, quote unquote, in that workout without getting injured. And then if I rest and recover for a couple of days, I can now max out even better. So imagine someone who does a timed mile who does 7 minutes and then gets better and eventually 6.5 and then eventually 6 and then eventually 5.5. They can do more in the same duration of time. Okay, what is the difference between a 6-minute mile and a 5-minute mile? The person who does the 5-minute mile accomplishes the same amount of things in less time. That's actually what efficiency and productivity actually is, by the way. So if a company can achieve more in less time, that means they're more efficient and productive. So anyways, where can I go with this? First of all, I love the idea of time. And Emilia called me a linear thinker, and I got playfully offended because I know what she meant, which is a chronological thinker. And the reason why this episode is happening is twofold. Kev had an experience with someone, and Kev said, this person I think is in trouble over time. And I said, what's the biggest difference? How do you know that they're in trouble? And he said, they think that time is going to change something without them changing.
Yes.
And time without them changing is actually just going to make things actually worse. Fitness is a great analogy. Anyone who's older, I'm 35 now, Kev's 34. It's not the same as it was in our mid-20s. We used to be able to work less and achieve more back then. Now we have to be way smarter and work way harder just to get the same result because of biology. Natural testosterone levels are lower, XYZ. Okay. So the reason why, alternatively, this episode happened is because I told Kev, I said I was listening to a insane productivity training. It was a course that I take. And I just had this moment, this breakthrough moment that sounds really simple, but it was profound for me. And I had this moment of, why doesn't anyone else talk about age? I have an 18-year-old client, and my oldest is 63. I talk about age all the time. I talk about, I'm 35 now, I was in my late 20s and XYZ happened. And I wondered to myself, why am I the one who talks about age all the time? I've studied the self-improvement space. I've listened to tons of different speakers, famous, not famous, trainers, podcasters, speakers, you name it. And no one talks about time like I do. And I don't understand why that is. Now I'm starting to understand why. I'm a chronological thinker. And so without going too far down the crazy rabbit hole, and Kev, I know you'll bring this back down to earth for everybody.
Maybe.
I hope so. Emilia called me a linear thinker, and I got offended. And I said, I'm not a linear thinker. I'm an exponential thinker. One of the quotes that I used to say that I now realize probably doesn't land for anybody is, one of the biggest problems with success is people aren't successful because they think linearly in a universe of exponentials. Nothing grows linearly. Literally nothing. Like, a linear is 1 step, 2 steps, 3 steps, 4 steps, 5 steps. A runner, when I ran my marathon, that was an exponential decay in my abilities over time.
Yes.
And cars accelerate, but then they decelerate when the air resistance happens, right? So everything is exponential. That's the best way I can describe it. In the negative direction or the positive direction, depending on the circumstances. And so we playfully joked, blah, blah, blah. And I figured out why I think I talk so much about time. And it's because I want our listeners to understand how much that matters. If I were to tell you, and again, don't quote me on this because this isn't an exact science. This is just statistically accurate with a % error. Everything I say has a plus or minus % error. I've had people say, well, you said X. No. First of all, back then that was true. And number two, it wasn't 100% true. I had a plus or minus 20% error.
That's the hard thing of having the courage to say stuff is, even if you're like a little off, unfortunately, people make it about that, you know?
I didn't realize that no one else puts in buffers. If you say something, Kev, and you say inaccurate shit all the time, it's just
one
off
time.
by a small percentage.
Name one time ever of all time. No, I know. No, don't. Okay. Don't name it. Don't name it.
But you at least call it out and say, I'm not sure exactly, but when I say I'm going to be there at 6, I mean between 550 and 610. I just automatically think that. I mean,
I would say it's between 610 and 620.
yeah, that's fair.
You know what I'm saying? In
Fair
fairness, you know.
But the point is I put buffers on everything. So again, why am I saying that? The statistic that I want to really hopefully make land for everybody is, what if I told you that 80% of the world's success, quote unquote, is in the hands of people that are 60 and older? The large majority of the world's wealth is in older people's hands. And I realize now that no one knows why that is. It's just the compound effect. It's the accumulated compound effect. I mean, imagine a teenager. Seriously, think about this. Imagine a teenager who is 17 years old. Just imagine. They're 17 years old and they're the CEO of McDonald's.
But
that's impossible.
The problem with it is of course, nobody talks about the other side because everybody wants the other side. Everybody wants the other side. Nobody wants to be a 75-year-old millionaire. They want to be a 22-year-old millionaire.
That's why I think the 22-year-old millionaires have extra influence.
100%, because they have what everybody wants.
But that's not normal. That's like...
So you and I had a deep conversation today about social media. And I said the thing that really blows my mind about social media, and I say this on podcasts all the time because I think it's just a little unlock. I don't know. When did TV come out? 1950s? 40s, 30s?
I think so. The telephone was 1922 or something, or 20.
So let's just say 40 years ago.
Let me rephrase that because I don't want anyone to... it became popular in the 1920s. The telephone. It wasn't invented then. There's a curve. That's to my point. There's a curve.
Exponential.
The telephone was probably invented in the 1800s, but no one knew about it.
Right.
Like, I have a self-driving car, but the whole road isn't going to be self-driving cars tomorrow. It's just going to be sooner than people think, I think.
Yeah.
And the only reason I know that is because I can see the curve in my head. You know.
Well, you've studied it.
What were you saying?
Yeah, it was good. What I was going to say was going to be good.
I have no doubt.
Now it's gone. No, I'm kidding. I don't know. Don't give me don't quote me on the years. But let's just say before social media, let's say 30 years ago, right? We're in 2024. Let's say 1994. Was that 30 years ago? Holy macaroons. Yeah. All right, let's say 50 years ago. 50 years ago, if you wanted to see a supermodel, you had to buy a magazine or turn on TV. By buying the magazine or turning on the television, you realized how rare it was. Because you don't know anybody who's in magazines, potentially. Maybe you do. And you don't know anybody on TV, statistically. Now, you open up your phone, and everybody is a supermodel, and everybody is in magazine shape, and everybody has nice cars and fancy homes and trips and extravagant lifestyles. But none of that is actually, that's all the anomaly.
Those are the algorithm.
Yes.
Picking up on who's viewing what.
Yes.
And the most shiny object usually gets viewed the most, and therefore the algorithm puts that at the top of the list for everybody.
And it messes up everything. Because I said, well, of course, I mean, do you want to see broke Kev? Do you want to see me pull up in my 1994 Toyota Corolla? No, it doesn't. It's not entertaining. It's just not as entertaining as pulling up in something nice. And that's, but the reason I say that is because it's not sexy to say, well, you know, Alan and I worked every day pretty much for 7 years, and then we got to 1,700 episodes, and then we finally crossed 1 million listens and $1 million. Our community celebrated the heck out of us. I am so grateful for each and every one of you. I think that's probably because you also understand the grind, but for some people, they might think, well, what took you so? It took you 1,700 episodes to get there? Yeah, it did. It took us a lot of episodes. We're also way better than we would have been if we didn't do those episodes. That's not necessarily sexy. What people like to hear is the opposite of, well, yeah, no, I went viral in my first post. That's so rare that even aspiring for that is most likely setting you up for failure. long term. That's like meeting someone who won the lottery and then going all in on that and saying that's going to be my strategy. I'm going to win the lottery. You might, but you also might spend your entire life putting money into something and wondering why it's not coming back because it's just a misbelief. It's just inaccurate. But it's the opposite of what is sexy. I think for most people, the journey from where you are today to where you ultimately want to get to is the opposite of what everybody else's sexy is. Just because most of it isn't actually that real. For a really good example of this before, and then I'll kick it to you. When Tara and I went to Scotland, there's a famous bridge in Harry Potter. I've never seen it, but Taryn wanted to go. Mm-hmm. Okay? I took a bunch of pictures.
Oh, it's a bridge. The train tracks.
It's a train bridge. It's like it's got arches. It's very famous.
If you've seen the Harry Potter films, it's the one in the second movie where they're in the flying car, and it's the train. They're trying to catch up to the train. The train's actually behind them. Everyone who's seen the movie will understand what I'm saying.
That's the
second
one.
Harry Potter movie. I adored that one.
Taryn has a beautiful video of this train. Chugga chewing. It's blowing its smokestack or whatever the hell it's called.
Nice. Hogwarts Express.
That 30, 45-second video, world class. That place was the buggiest place I've ever been in my entire life. I had to walk down because the bugs were going up my nose and in my mouth. I gave Taryn my sweatshirt and I said, cover your face because I want to make sure you don't miss this. I'm gonna go down. They're in my shoes. They're in my shirt. They're biting me. They're stinging me. Never know that, though, if I didn't tell you. You would never know that if I didn't tell you, and you know how you would know if you went and got a video of it yourself. And then you'd actually know. But if nobody ever told you, you would have no freaking clue. You couldn't know. You just couldn't. It's a massive tourist attraction. There's a giant parking lot, and there were 200 people there on the rocks taking videos. You'd never know. It's a huge thing. There's paths, there's signs, there's trails, there's fences. This is like a tourist attraction, but you'd never know if you hadn't been there. So I think that's just an example of it.
Well, what I try to do in life, and I hope our listeners do this as well, and this is one of the reasons why I playfully say my coaching sounds terrible. I think the reason my coaching sounds terrible is because we're just being honest about
100%.
What it is.
100%.
All my coaching is let me get you back to the real. Let me get you back to what actually works, what really builds it. I try really hard to do this, and rationality is one of my main core values. And I didn't presuppose that it didn't suck. Like, okay, if I saw that video of the train and Harry Potter, I'd say that's so cool, and I would assume that it absolutely sucked trying to get that video. Because everything in life kind of blows.
Yeah, but I think you're weird.
You're safer that way. It's more accurate. Like, we climbed a mountain called Blue Humpback Mountain or Blue Ridge. It was in the Blue Ridge Mountains, and it was called Humpback Mountain. That climb was awful. Mm. But the view is always great. Doesn't everyone know the climb is always awful? Like,
yeah, if we're putting it into something physical like that, my example for that was it's the sexiest thing is also usually the most rare thing. That's usually how it is. The sexiest thing is, well, I posted a video and then I went viral. I did this and then this happened. I did this. I went on one date with this person and we fell deeply in love. Like, the way your relationship happened is very statistically rare.
Yeah.
That is super, super, super rare.
And the 30 years prior to that was not great.
No, I would say
in comparison.
Yeah, it wasn't ideal.
Yeah. Everyone knows that who's in a relationship, though. It's I don't know how to explain that, but
I just think it's the principle that if you are looking for another one of my quotes, and again, I say this on podcasts all the time. If I sound arrogant when I give you a quote that I made up, I'm sure somebody has said it in the same exact language, in the same exact sequence at some point. I have just never heard it. If we spend as much time on the unsexy fundamentals as we did searching for shortcuts, we probably all would be more successful than we are.
Definitely.
If we just did the things that we know we should do.
Definitely.
Fair. I'm very
statistically that's a mathematical certainty.
I'm very cautious with my facts. Yeah, but
fair.
that's my thought is it's almost like we want the sexy thing And when we don't get the sexy thing, we think we're doing something wrong, when in reality, that's just kind of the way it works. It's you're not going to get lucky most likely, and that's okay. And here's the other thing. You don't really want to. You don't really want to get lucky. I did a call the other day with a new client, and she started her podcast and opened up coaching, and she got like 15 clients right away. And I was like, this is really good, but this is really good, but this is not going to happen forever. And we got to get our ducks in a row here, because you're going to get overwhelmed very quickly. And we need to build in the habits that actually would create this, because trust me, when these 15 clients go away, which they will eventually in their own order and their own, when it's time, you're not going to know how to get 15 more because it doesn't work like this. This is good. And we need to be very, very cautious to make sure this doesn't actually become your biggest weakness. And I just think that's a really good example of this. There's benefits and detriments of everything. The benefit of you getting lucky is maybe you get somewhere faster. The detriment is you don't know how to handle it. You're not capable yet. Your character gets jeffed. Next Level Nation, what is happening? If you've thought to yourself, I want to try coaching, but you don't really know where to start, group coaching would be a wonderful place for you. That's really why we created it in the first place. We start a new round every 90 days. So if you're hearing this, go to the website, nextleveluniverse.com, and we have the landing page where you can actually hold your spot right now. Even if there's a group going on right now, you can still lock your spot for the next one. The biggest thing that we've seen is as we get closer and closer to the date, unfortunately, some people end up missing. The group fills up and they can't do it, and then they end up regretting that. So please head over to the website. The link will be in the show notes, and we would love to see you there. I had a moment the other day, Alan. I was watching something, I don't remember what it was, and I thought to myself, I am so... Oh, there was Tara and I watched this thing about a dancing group that ended up turning into a church, and it was this whole cult thing, and they stole all their money. And I had this moment where I said, I'm so grateful it took us as long as it has to get to where we are, because I wouldn't fall for something like that.
Yeah.
I don't have 2 million followers on TikTok at 22 years old. And I'm naive to that. I was naive at 22, trust me. But I'm happy it took this long, because I'm not looking for that thing. Oh, if I join this group, that'll be what... I don't care. I don't care about any... I'm good. I'm good. We're going to keep doing what we're doing, the unsexy fundamentals, so... And
nice.
Grant.
You sound like me at the beginning.
I know.
Like, everyone was going nuts for Clubhouse. I was like, brother, we're good. Just keep the fundamentals.
Yeah.
It's important that... You have purple in the background, by the way. I just noticed that. Nice.
I believe it's pink. I don't know if it's purple or pink. I try to make it pink. I switched it up. Alan doesn't like when I don't do brand colors. He gets sad if I don't do brand colors. But I'm trying to make, you got to make the backdrop pop a little bit.
You got to. I think the purple and the blue contrast looks good. Yeah.
Likewise.
This is one of my favorite topics in the entire world. Kev was like, let's talk about time. I was like, yes. So important. I'm in. I had several things that I wanted to share.
Alan's stalling right now. This is classic stalling behavior. He's stalling.
This is me trying to figure out what I was thinking to say.
Mm-hmm.
What were you saying right before this?
Oh, so many things. So many valuable things. So many deep thoughts connected to other deep thoughts.
No, seriously.
Who knows? I was talking about how I'm glad it took us as long as it did to get here.
Keep going. Yeah, got it. Okay, you talked about the cult thing.
Yeah.
I was in book club, and I said my favorite part about book club is that we're all trying to get smarter. Smart people are not easily manipulated. And this is something that's a little side tangent to the time thing, but Kev, you're not easily manipulated anymore because you know better.
Awareness.
It's awareness. Yeah.
It's awareness.
If you have low awareness and you're naive, you can be easily taken advantage of.
Yep.
And you and I have been in situations where even when you went to get the BMW, you called me. The reason why I think you do that, Emilia, when we were doing the house, the mortgage person, I'm on the phone because you're not going to outmath a math person. You can't take us for a ride. I know what you're doing, sir. And I can tell what's a good deal and what's not. I even knew what to offer on the place. I knew what would get us the house statistically. So this is a superpower. It's awesome. I'm so grateful. But for the listeners, when you are aware of what creates results, what really creates results, you can put time to your advantage.
Yeah.
You can, in 5 years, you'll be in a better spot if you focus on the things that really matter. It is a formula. Success is a formula. And you can learn the formula and you can run the formula. I can't guarantee any specific outcome, but I can get you closer. I mean, you can shoot your shots and I can get you way closer.
Yeah.
And the other piece that I wanted to share, there's a woman named Val. Kevin and I went to Arizona once to an event. And there was a woman there named Val who had won a Grammy for a show. I forget what show. Not a Grammy. Grammy is music, right? Which one's the TV one? I know that Oscars are movies. Is Grammy music?
Grammy's music.
Okay, and then there's one for TV. It was a TV one.
Emmy.
That's the
Emmy.
one. Yeah, I knew it was Grammy or Emmy. There's a lot of different terms. Okay, so
sounds like
Oscar.
family members. Gonna go hang out with Grammy, then we're gonna go hang out with Emmy.
Then we're gonna head over to Oscar's place.
Perfect. MTV Music Awards. My cousin MTV Music Awards. Gonna go see them later.
So she won an Emmy Award for a TV show she worked on. And I always ask this question. Kev's seen me ask this question before. What's something... So she worked in the TV business for 20 years. 20 plus years. Probably 25 or 30. I don't actually know, but I know it's decades. You don't just win an Emmy. You work in the industry for decades and then you win an Emmy, right? So I asked her, I said, what's something that I wouldn't know unless I'm in the industry? What's something that an outsider could never know unless they worked in the business? And she said this. She said, it's not glamorous at all. Being on TV, people think is glamorous. She says, it absolutely sucks. It's awful. Behind the scenes is awful. And if you've ever been on a movie set, again, as if I've been on a bunch of movie sets, we interviewed someone, a friend of mine who did a feature film. And I hear the horror stories of how bad that was. This actress getting hurt about this actor, the people, all the director might as well be a business person who just has to make sure you stay within budget. Certain people asking for more money, some people saying, well, we're not going to finish the film now unless you pay me XYZ more. It just sounds like a nightmare, genuinely. It was really important for me to pick his brain about how bad that was. Because when we watch a movie, we sit down and it's like, this is awesome. At least I do. Like, this is amazing. Harry Potter, the film that I referenced earlier, that cost what? $200 million back then? Which is now what? 400? I mean, how many headaches, people fired, bad things, good things, people butting heads? I mean, what did that really take? Travel?
There's a YouTube channel called It Was a Shit Show. And it's all about how big of a shit show the making of a movie was.
Nice.
And I watched it on James Cameron's The Abyss.
Oh, dude.
And it was wild. It was such an interesting... Because when I've never seen the movie, but when you see clips from it, it's like, oh my God. I think it was $10 million over budget.
Yeah.
I think it was 6 weeks over budget. James Cameron almost died. Several of the actors almost died. This thing was shot underwater. It was... They had to pump 6 million gallons of water into a abandoned nuclear test site that never got fully built. And it was like this wild thing. You just never know.
Yep. You just go to a film, you eat your popcorn, you're chilling.
Really cool YouTube channel, though. It's called It Was a Shit Show.
Nice. Well, I think that's a good metaphor for life. I really do. I think that when you go to a film, and I love film, I'm so excited for Inside Out 2. It's coming out soon. When you go to a film, you see all the best parts. You see the stuff that made it in the film. That's what I think social media has become. You're seeing the parts that everyone's catering and cutting and perfecting. But in real life, I'm telling you, I've coached these people. There's one person I'm thinking of. It's a couple. They live in a mansion with an indoor pool. They make tons of money. They are super inspiring in their own right, but their relationship is an absolute shit show. I mean, they are not happy. Like, my relationship is way better than theirs is, and theirs looks way better than mine does online. And I don't even think mine looks bad. You just have to understand it's all a Fugazi. It's just like The Abyss. When you go see that movie, it looks great. Everything looks fine. You have no idea anyone almost died. You have no idea how much hundreds of thousands of dollars were wasted on that one shot that never made it in the film. You weren't there. I mean, Peter Jackson, when he made the Lord of the Rings movies, he had mental health problems and massive depression, and he had anxiety and all kinds of stuff. So Lord of the Rings films are unbelievable. They're so good. The best films maybe ever created in some people's eyes. But Peter Jackson was scared to do the next ones because that was a really dark time for him. He spent years in a freaking editor's room. And again, I don't know if it's years, so please don't quote me, but I'll tell you what, it's a lot more than people think. And there was one scene where Aragorn, the character, Viggo Mortensen, he actually had an actual knife thrown at him, like a real knife, not a fake one.
Oh.
On accident, it slipped out of the orc's hand, and he almost got deaded by the knife.
He almost got.
So, anyways, I think that's a good metaphor for life. I don't know how that has to do with time.
Everything has to do with time.
Well said.
Thank you so much.
My last takeaway is, do not look at someone else's moment in time and assume that that's how it always was or how it always will be. Every one of us is in a chapter, and that chapter was the accumulated compound effect of the choices that they made up to that moment, and they might be headed down or up. And if you wake up each day and say, okay, what can I build today? Who can I become today? What can I do today to be the most constructive, best version of myself? I mean, your future will be bigger, better, and brighter than it is. And most of that stuff, being on this podcast is awesome. The production of this podcast is a lot of work. Thank you, production team. But Kev, you used to have to do all that yourself, and what it takes to promote it, what it takes to analyze it, what we did today. So it's 5:42 p.m. We've been together since 11 a.m. And everything we did up until hitting record was all back office business, spreadsheets, finance, bank accounts, charity, XYZ. It was a lot of work that none of that was anything other than semi-frustrating and challenging and mundane and unsexy stuff. But if we don't do that, we can't be here for this.
I have a man crush on an actor that I've seen in a couple things lately. Austin Butler. He played Elvis in the Elvis movie with Tom Hanks. Great. Weird movie, but very good. And he's not jacked like The Rock, Alan, but I have a man crush on him. I don't know what it is about him. He's a really good actor. For Poops and Giggles, I looked at what his career was like, and I think he got his first... He's been doing this since like 2006. He was born in 1991, so he's 33. But that was 17 years ago. That's 17. That's a long, 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 long time.
Yeah, he just had a really big break too in Dune. He was the bad guy in Dune.
Masters of Air, which is a really good movie, really good series. I told you about that. That he was in that. But that's the thing is, like, when something pops and it's hot and it's sexy and it's out there in front of everything, you assume it's like, oh man, good for that person. They must have just got started. It's like, no way. I wish I had a really good example of like how many studio albums did it take before somebody made it, but it takes years and years and years and years. And that, just understand, this is the last thing and then we'll go. Time can be on your side if you're doing the right things. If you're on your side and you're trying to build your habits, you're trying to get a little bit better every day and all that stuff, the stuff that we talk about every single day, just on repeat. If you're focused on that, your future is going to be very bright. Just statistically speaking, why wouldn't it? You're doing the right things. But anybody out there who you're assuming time is enough to change things, that's not going to be it. It's not going to work that way. It's not going to work that way. Wind doesn't really matter that much if you don't have a sail up. And even in this analogy, like a sail's kind of easy to throw up. Time is taking us, but it's the effort thing. So maybe the sailboat isn't a good analogy, but I just hate to see, because I was that guy. I didn't go to college, then I was like, well, eventually, I'm sure I'll get something. And I did. I got a good job eventually, but that was luck. That was not because I did anything different. I'm telling you, it wasn't. I got lucky. Things happened in a really unique sequence for me, and I got pretty lucky. And I'm grateful I did, but I assumed that time was just going to catch up, and eventually, everything will kind of work itself out. I don't think that's the case for most people.
What do you think now?
I think if I didn't get that job, I was going to be screwed. I don't know what I would have done.
If you used to say, well, eventually things will work out, what do you actually believe now?
Things are going to work out to the extent that you make them work out. Yeah. It's up to you. Time can help, but it can also hurt. It can also hurt. So yeah, try to have the most empowering, accurate version of that is what I would say.
Nice.
You dig?
It was fire. I love it. I could keep talking, but we should.
Yeah, I know. Well, we went from 13-minute episodes to 35-minute episodes now. That's how you know. We're doing our Next Level Hope Foundation Father's Day event. Please tell the wonderful community family about it.
For the long-term listeners, thank you for sticking with us. You know all about this. We do it every year. For the new listeners, so Kevin and I both were born without fathers. So my father passed away when I was 2. Had a stepdad from 3 to 14. My stepfather left when I was 14, but I never really fully connected with him anyway. So we were both raised by 2 women. So I had my older sister and my mom, and he had his mama and his Mima, which is his grandma. Mm-hmm. And so we both were unconsciously looking for male role models. And so we created a charity called the Next Level Hope Foundation, where we can hopefully provide be male role models to children of boys without fathers is what it started as, and then we wanted to include anyone without a father, and then we wanted to include children of single parents. So Kevin and I witnessed how hard it was to raise kids as a single parent, and so we wanted to give back. So we have a GoFundMe page. The link will be in the show notes, and Kevin and I this is the way we're approaching it now. So we grew our company by 20% last year, so we're growing our contributions by 20% as well. So last year we matched up to $500. This year it's actually more than 20%. We're going to be matching $600. We already matched our $600. So the goal is $1,200. We already contributed our $600. So please contribute any way that you can. This is going to t-shirts. This is going to renting out the YMCA for Father's Day. So we're not doing it on Father's Day. We're doing it on the 15th. Father's Day is on the 16th. It's Saturday the 15th from 2 to 5 p.m. We get Beanie Babies for the kids. We rent out the entire gym. We do arts and crafts. We do face paint. Again, the link will be in the show notes. You'll see the photo. It's been tremendous. And any contributions we really appreciate.
Boom. Strong work. All right, so we're doing something different. And we've kind of been teasing this, talking about it. Maybe not teasing is the best word. We don't know if we want to know what episode we're doing tomorrow, because I feel like these kind of episodes where it's what we really want to talk about in the moment. I think we're guilty of being on both ends, where we would just completely freestyle it, and then maybe that wasn't the flow. Well, we'd also script the whole thing, and we definitely don't like that.
Well, we never scripted the whole thing, but we definitely... It went from just a conversation where we'd show up in the beginning to then eventually there was an outline, and it became kind of more lecture-like, and we want to try to go back to the center of more conversational. Yeah. And I feel like we're at a place now where we can talk intelligently about things without a ton of prep work and what we're feeling in the moment. So sorry to interrupt you.
I want it to be natural. No, you're good. I want it to be a natural conversation, and you don't really know what you're going to talk about in a natural conversation. You have an idea, but then you go and you figure out kind of where to go. So I think that's what we're going to try to do, just because that feels right. And again, that's the beauty of learning and growing, evolving, and you all understand that too at a deep level, that different things feel different. And then things feel right, and you test it out and see what happens. So we're going to lead by example and do that. So I don't know what we're going to talk about tomorrow, but hopefully it will be a valuable episode to you. I'm sure it will, and I'm sure Alan and I will have fun at doing it. As always, we love you. We appreciate you. Grateful for each and every one of you. And at NLU, we don't have fans. We have family. We will talk to you all tomorrow.
Keep time on your side. Next Level Nation.